https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=sign-q4kho0. Just 7 minutes ago, the golden gates of Buckingham Palace didn't just rattle. They shivered to their very foundations. A statement has just slammed into newsrooms across the globe, ending weeks of guarded silence with a cold, ruthless declaration that no one inside the royal household saw coming. Did King Charles really sign off on this? Did Queen Camilla just get stripped of her ultimate crown privilege? We have seen royal rivalries, subtle side-eye at ceremonial dinners, and icy snubs in drafty corridors. But what just hit the wires isn't a minor diary adjustment. It is a full-blown institutional eviction. Before we dive deep into the jaw-dropping private confrontation that tore through Clarence house right before this announcement dropped, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because palace press officers are working absolute overtime right now trying to spin this disaster. You heard it correctly, folks. Queen Camilla has officially been ousted, and Princess and the absolute no-nonsense titan of the monarchy has stepped in to permanently replace her as the crown's principal female representative at major state events. No soft explanations. No fake medical excuses. No polite retreat. This was a brutal, calculated power shift that left Camilla clutching a 2-line memo in complete shock while quietly locked down the throne's most critical public duties. So sit tight, drop your thoughts in the comments and grab your tea, because the royal family just chose cold-blooded discipline over a queen's pride. And the drama unfolding behind those closed palace doors is pure, unfiltered chaos. The silence inside Clarence house right before the statement hit the wire was so heavy you could have heard a pearl drop on a velvet rug. For months, the rumors were brushed off by palace spokespeople as nothing more than malicious tabloid gossip cooked up by bored royal watchers. They told us everything was fine, that the inner circle was more united than ever, and that any shift in state duties was merely a routine scheduling tweak designed to manage workload and keep everyone rested. But let us stop pretending. The truth that just leaked out of the corridors of power tells a completely different story, one built on months of backstabbing, secret power plays, and a level of cold-blooded institutional maneuvering that makes medieval court politics look like a playground dispute. To understand how Queen Camilla was so swiftly pushed aside in favor of Princess Anne, you have to look at the mounting frustration that has been brewing behind closed doors for over a year. Camilla's rise from public enemy number 1 to the crowned queen consort was meant to be the ultimate redemption story. The palace machinery spent 2 decades polishing her image, engineering careful public appearances, and slowly conditioning the public to accept her standing right beside King Charles. But once the crown was securely on her head, sources report that the discipline began to slip. Reports of extravagant private demands, chaotic schedule management, and an increasingly arrogant dismissiveness toward long-standing palace protocol started raising red flags among senior officials and members of the royal household who have spent their entire lives preserving the crown's fragile reputation. While Princess Anne was out there in rainy Scottish coastal towns pulling off 300 engagements a year without a single complaint, Camilla was reportedly turning official state, planning into a nightmare of endless revisions and last-minute demands. Insiders whisper about lavish state dinner budgets inflating to astronomical levels just to accommodate bizarre, hyper-specific aesthetic requests that felt more like Hollywood diva writers than centuries-old royal tradition. The breaking point wasn't just about money or ego, though. It was about authority and reliability. The palace is an institution that survives entirely on discipline and predictability. When foreign dignitaries arrive, when ambassadors bow, and when state banquets are staged, there is zero room for personal drama or temperamental standoffs. Yet, over the last several months, senior courtiers were forced to watch in horror as high-stakes diplomatic welcomes were repeatedly thrown into chaos because the queen consort reportedly refused to adhere to agreed-upon protocol orders, viewing any minor adjustment as a personal slight against her newly minted status. The tension reached a fever pitch during a series of private strategy meetings where the future of the monarchy's state representation was laid bare on the table. Prince William, acting with the quiet backing of senior advisors who realized the monarchy cannot afford another public relation disaster, pushed for an objective operational review of every single working royal's public duties. The goal was simple on paper: ensure that the absolute most dependable, unshakable figures were front and center at every single event where the crown's global reputation was on the line. But everyone in that room knew the subtext. This wasn't a standard performance review. It was a targeted surgical strike aimed directly at Camilla's growing influence over major state occasions. When the findings of that internal review were compiled, the documentation painted a devastating picture. It detailed repeated instances where state receptions were delayed, where foreign delegations were left waiting in holding rooms while frantic aides tried to resolve seating disputes, and where the overall presentation of the monarchy appeared fractured and uncoordinated. In contrast, Princess Anne's section of the report read like a masterclass in relentless, flawless execution. Decades of service, zero scandals, zero complaints, and an ironclad commitment to putting the crown before personal comfort. The review didn't just suggest a minor shift in responsibilities. It laid out a damning case that continuing with the current setup posed an ongoing risk to the crown's international standing. When the report finally landed on the king's desk, it carried the weight of a formal ultimatum. Charles was forced to face an impossible choice between protecting his wife's public standing and safeguarding the raw operational integrity of the institution he spent a lifetime waiting to inherit. Those who know the king describe him as a man deeply torn between his intense personal loyalty to Camilla and his sacred duty to the crown. He tried to delay. He tried to request revised drafts of the report that used softer, more ambiguous language. He asked if there was any way to frame the change as a temporary health-related rest period, or a joint arrangement where both women shared the duties. But the advisors, backed by William and the sheer weight of Princess Anne's undeniable track record, remained completely firm. The language had to be definitive, the change had to be permanent, and the transition had to happen immediately. While Charles agonized over the decision in his private study, the atmosphere across the palace network had already turned icy. Staff members were quietly briefed, new seating charts were printed, and invitation lists for upcoming diplomatic receptions were silently altered in central offices before Camilla even realized her fate had been sealed. The betrayal felt absolute because it was handled with the cold, bureaucratic efficiency that the monarchy uses when it decides someone has become a liability. There were no loud screaming matches in the hallway, no dramatic public confrontations caught on camera. Just a quiet, ruthless redistribution of power that effectively erased years of careful image building in a single afternoon. By the time the final document was presented to the king for his signature, the machinery was already in full motion. Pages had been turned, duties had been officially reassigned, and Princess Anne had already been privately briefed on her expanded responsibilities. When asked if she was ready to step into the role permanently, Anne didn't smile, she didn't celebrate, and she certainly didn't offer any victorious commentary. She simply reviewed the schedule, confirmed her availability, and stated in her typical blunt fashion that the work would be done properly and without further disruption to the state schedule. But if Anne was prepared to swallow the burden of duty, Camilla was about to receive the ultimate humiliation of her royal life. When the formal notice finally reached Camilla's private sitting room, it wasn't delivered by her husband. It was brought in on a silver tray by a senior aide who looked like he was walking toward a firing squad. She read the briefing paper once, sat in complete silence, and then read it a second time as if hoping the words on the page would magically change. The memo made it crystal clear. Effective immediately, Princess Anne would stand in her place as the primary female representative at all incoming diplomatic receptions, ceremonial banquets, remembrance services, and high-level overseas engagements. No gentle excuses were offered. No public cover story was provided. The palace had made its verdict, and the cold reality of her public identity being dismantled line by line began to sink in with brutal clarity. Instead of breaking down or causing an immediate scene, Camilla folded the page with trembling hands, placed it neatly on the table beside her untouched tea, and asked the aide a single piercing question that cut through the silence like a knife. She asked whether Charles had personally read and approved every single word of the declaration. The aide couldn't even look her in the eye. His refusal to offer a quick, comforting lie was all the confirmation she needed. The king had signed it. The man who had spent decades defying his family, the press, and the entire British public just to put her beside him on the throne had ultimately yielded to the institutional pressure, leaving her utterly exposed and completely stripped of her most prestigious public roles. As the news began to circulate through the private channels of the royal household, the emotional fallout spread like wildfire. Aides who had spent years walking on eggshells around the queen consort suddenly realized that the balance of power had shifted overnight. The woman who had spent decades fighting her way up from the margins of the royal family To hold the ultimate title was now being systematically sidelined by the very institution she thought she had finally conquered. And as the story began to leak to high-level media contacts, the desperate scramble to control